Silas lived his life in shades of charcoal and ash. Every morning he drank his tea from a chipped mug, watched the fog roll over the city, and felt as though he were a ghost haunting his own routine. His world was quiet, predictable, and desperately lonely. Then came Vesper. She arrived like a sudden burst of color in a monochrome film. They met at a small cafe tucked away in a narrow alley, a place where people went when they didn't want to be found. Over the hum of the espresso machine, their eyes met, and the gray began to lift. Vesper was a melody played in a minor key. She spoke of poetry and the way the stars looked from the deck of a ship, her voice a soothing balm for Silas's weary soul. But even as she laughed, she kept her coat draped over her shoulders, as if ready to flee at a moment's notice. Their love grew in the shadows, built on whispered conversations and stolen hours. Silas began to leave notes for her in the hollow of an old oak tree in the park, scraps of paper filled with words he could never say out loud in the light of day. One afternoon, the clouds broke and doused the city in a sudden, heavy downpour. Under the sanctuary of a shared umbrella, the distance between them vanished. For a few brief minutes, they weren't two strangers with separate lives. They were simply two halves of a whole. But the world always found a way back in. Vesper wore a thin gold band on her left hand that shimmered cruelly whenever the sun caught it. It was a reminder of a house she lived in, a name she carried, and a man who waited for her to return to a life Silas could never enter. They met in a hidden garden where the ivy grew thick enough to hide their secrets. Silas reached out, his hand trembling as he brushed a stray lock of hair from her face. In that moment, the weight of their choices felt heavier than the humid summer air. "We are living in the blue hour," Vesper whispered one evening, referring to the fleeting moment between sunset and darkness. Silas knew she was right. Their time was a borrowed luxury, a beautiful dream that had to end before the rest of the world woke up. The end came at a crowded train station, amidst the roar of engines and the rush of commuters. There were no dramatic scenes, only a quiet understanding. They stood on the platform, the space between them growing wider with every passing second of the countdown. Vesper stepped onto the train, and the doors hissed shut, sealing away the color she had brought into his life. As the carriage pulled away, Silas stood on the platform until the taillights faded into the distance. He walked home through the gray, his heart heavy with a secret that would never be told.